My grandmother hosted a family reunion, then raised her glass and said, "To those of us who shame our family name," sprawling Victorian house painted a stately, if slightly faded, robin's egg blue, pulsed with a nervous energy. It was the kind of energy only a family reunion could conjure, a potent cocktail of forced smiles, carefully calculated seating charts, and the ever-present undercurrent of unspoken resentments. Grandma Eleanor, the matriarch, the architect of this annual circus, surveyed her domain with an eagle eye, perched on her antique armchair like a queen on her throne. This year felt different, though. There was a sharpness to Grandma Eleanor's gaze, a steeliness in her usually gentle voice. Usually, these reunions were exercises in carefully curated nostalgia, a performance of familial harmony. But today, the music felt a little too loud, the laughter a little too strained. My siblings, Liam and Chloe, were clustered by the buffet table, dissecting their cousin's life choices with surgical precision. Liam, the elder, a lawyer with a penchant for tailored suits and cutting remarks, was holding court. Chloe, the middle child, a struggling actress with a perpetual air of dissatisfaction, punctuated his pronouncements with dramatic sighs. "Do you think she's talking about Uncle Joe?" I asked, nudging Liam with my elbow. Uncle Joe, bless his soul, had always been the designated family screw-up. A string of failed businesses, a messy divorce, and a general air of incompetence had cemented his position as the perennial target of family gossip. Liam scoffed, swirling his wine. Who else would it be? Joe probably lost his shirt at the casino again. Honestly, the man's a professional embarrassment. Chloe giggled, her eyes flickering to where Uncle Joe was awkwardly attempting to engage their cousin Sarah in conversation. Poor Sarah. She looks like she wants to disappear into the wallpaper. I chuckled, but a knot of unease tightened in my stomach. There was something in Grandma Eleanor's demeanor that didn't quite fit the usual narrative. She wasn't just observing, she was evaluating. The afternoon unfolded with the predictable rhythm of family gatherings. Awkward small talk, forced compliments on the floral arrangements, and the inevitable rehashing of old family anecdotes. I found myself retreating to the relative peace of the garden, seeking refuge amongst the fragrant roses and overgrown hydrangeas. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn, Grandma Eleanor called everyone inside. The dining room, usually reserved for holidays and other special occasions, was decked out with the family's finest china and silverware. A sense of anticipation, thick and heavy, filled the air. We all took our assigned seats around the massive mahogany table, the seating arrangement a testament to Grandma Eleanor's intricate understanding of family dynamics. The estranged cousins were strategically placed on opposite ends, the newly engaged couple nestled between the more stable married siblings. It was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive social engineering. Grandma Eleanor, seated at the head of the table, tapped her water glass with a silver spoon. The clinking sound cut through the chatter like a knife. All eyes turned to her. She rose slowly, her frail frame belying the strength in her voice. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces. "It means a great deal to me to have my family gathered under one roof." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the room. The dreaded family lecture was about to begin, the annual sermon on the importance of loyalty, tradition, and upholding the family name. We all braced ourselves for the usual platitudes. But then, Grandma Eleanor's expression shifted. Her lips thinned, her eyes hardened. Her voice, though still steady, took on an edge. "I've been thinking a lot lately about what it means to be a family," she continued, her gaze lingering on each of us in turn, "about the responsibilities we have to one another, and to the legacy we leave behind." She paused, taking a slow, deliberate breath. Then, she reached for her wine glass, filled with a deep, ruby-red liquid. "So," she said, raising her glass high, her voice ringing with an unexpected force, "to those of us who shame our family name." A stunned silence descended upon the room. Liam choked on his wine, his face turning a mottled shade of red. Chloe's jaw dropped, her carefully applied lipstick smudging slightly. I stared at Grandma Eleanor, my mind reeling. Liam, ever the quick-witted lawyer, was the first to recover. He let out a nervous chuckle. attempting to deflect the tension. "Well, that's certainly a toast. I think we all know who that's aimed at, Grandma." "Poor Uncle Joe." He winked at Chloe, who echoed his nervous laughter. They didn't realize. They were so convinced of their own superiority, so blinded by their carefully constructed narratives, that they completely missed the target. "Do you think she's talking about Uncle Joe?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the forced joviality. Liam rolled his eyes. "Seriously? Who else could it be? You know how Grandma is about appearances. Joe's been a walking disaster since he was a kid." Chloe nodded in agreement. "Honestly, it's embarrassing. He's like a walking, talking cautionary tale." They continued to dissect Uncle Joe, oblivious to the simmering anger in Grandma Eleanor's eyes. I looked at them, at their smug expressions and their unwavering belief in their own infallibility. And a chilling realization dawned on me. Grandma Eleanor wasn't talking about Uncle Joe. She was talking about them. She was talking about Liam, the high-powered lawyer who built his career on exploiting loopholes and defending the indefensible. He prioritized wealth and prestige above all else, sacrificing his integrity for the sake of climbing the corporate ladder. She was talking about Chloe, the aspiring actress who peddled a carefully curated image of success on social media, while secretly drowning in debt and despair. She chased fame and validation with a desperate hunger, willing to compromise her values for a fleeting moment in the spotlight. And perhaps, I thought with a jolt, she was talking about me as well. I, the observer, the quiet one. The one who always tried to mediate and keep the peace. But perhaps my silence was a form of complicity. Perhaps my desire to avoid conflict had allowed their behavior to continue unchecked. Grandma Eleanor lowered her glass, her gaze sweeping across the table, lingering for a moment on each of us. "I've watched you all grow up," she said, her voice softening slightly, but still retaining its steely edge. "I've seen the choices you've made, the paths you've chosen, and I must confess, I am disappointed." The silence that followed was deafening. The air in the room crackled with unspoken tension. Liam and Chloe shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their smiles faltering. The confident facade they had so carefully constructed began to crumble. Grandma Eleanor continued, her voice laced with a mixture of sadness and regret. "This family has always stood for something, for integrity, for compassion, for a commitment to something greater than ourselves. But somewhere along the way, some of you have lost sight of those values." She looked directly at Liam. "Liam, your ambition has blinded you. You've become so focused on winning, on climbing to the top, that you've forgotten the importance of doing what is right. You've sacrificed your conscience for the sake of your career." Liam opened his mouth to protest, but Grandma Eleanor cut him off with a sharp look. She turned to Chloe. "And Chloe, your obsession with fame and validation has consumed you. You've become so desperate for attention that you're willing to compromise your values, to sell out your soul. You've forgotten that true worth comes from within, not from the fleeting approval of strangers." Chloe burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. Liam sat in stunned silence, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Grandma Eleanor's gaze finally turned to me. "And you, my dear," she said, her voice softer, but no less pointed. "You've always been the peacekeeper, the mediator. But sometimes silence is not the answer. Sometimes you have to stand up and speak out, even when it's uncomfortable. You have a good heart, but you must find the courage to use your voice." I felt a lump form in my throat, tears stinging my eyes. She was right. I had been too complacent, too afraid to rock the boat. I had allowed their behavior to continue unchecked, enabling their self-destructive tendencies. Grandma Eleanor took a deep breath, her gaze softening as she looked at her fractured family. "I'm not telling you this to shame you," she said, her voice filled with a weary sadness. "I'm telling you this because I love you, and because I believe that you are all capable of so much more." She paused, taking another sip of her wine. "It's not too late to change. It's not too late to reclaim your values, to rediscover your purpose. But it requires honesty, introspection, and a willingness to confront your own flaws." The silence stretched on, heavy and pregnant with unspoken emotions. Then, slowly, Liam raised his head, His eyes filled with a newfound humility. "You're right, Grandma," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I've lost my way." Chloe, still sobbing, nodded in agreement. "I've been so focused on trying to be someone else that I've forgotten who I am." I reached out and took their hands, a wave of understanding and compassion washing over me. We were all flawed, all imperfect, but we were also family. And perhaps, just perhaps, this uncomfortable, painful reckoning was exactly what we needed. Grandma Eleanor smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. "Good," she said, her voice filled with a renewed hope. "Then let us begin." The family reunion that began with forced smiles and unspoken resentments ended with tears, confessions, and a glimmer of hope. It was a reminder that family, in all its messy, complicated glory, is not about perfection, but about connection. It's about holding each other accountable, challenging one another to be better, and ultimately forgiving one another for our inevitable failures. And it all started with a toast to those of us who shame our family name, a toast to the possibility of redemption, and a toast to the enduring power of love, even in the face of disappointment.